What is up, YouTube? It is Doc here, Docky Style Gaming, and I am back at it again with another GodFall video for you all today. And in this video, we are taking a look at my Typhon build, a build on which I thought I would never do. I always talk about not really caring for using my shield abilities or not caring for using consume with any of my builds, even though they are extremely powerful. But after messing around with my current build of Typhon and completely reworking it yesterday, and if you caught my stream yesterday, seeing how strong it actually was, yeah, there was no doubt I wasn't going to post this video. So in this video, we are going to be taking a look at my Fire and Ice Consume Typhon build. So without wasting any more of y'all's time, let's hop straight into this video. So first and foremost, let's take a look at the skill grid instead of the attributes first, because I have made some changes because now I am focusing on some shield ability. So what I wind up respecing into is shield throws and shield attacks. Now, I at least put 2 into my shield attacks for a bit extra shield damage, and I put 3 into my shield throw for that explosive wave timing attack. Now, the level 3 shield throw ability is essential for this build, so if you need to reallocate some of your skill points, at least make sure you put up to 3 in your shield throw. Now, when it comes to the Ascension levels, these are all the stats, and I'm not even going to say what I always say in every video. You guys already know what's up. And then we will take a quick look here at the Ascension powers. So now that we got that all out of the way, we can now move into the attributes and look over all of our base stats and detailed stats and start getting into the gear and augment. So for starters, our attributes are sitting at pretty much 3,000 for might, 2,400 for spirit, and 2,600 for vitality. Our DPS is at 1,700, secondary DPS is at 1,800, and our max health is at 3,900. Crit chance is sitting at 62%. Anything over 60 in my opinion is really good. I'm sure y'all know that's what I always aim for. And then we have a little over 100% crit damage. Now, all of our resistances are capped, and that's essential for this build. Now, main DPS numbers aren't looking too crazy because all of your damage is going to be coming from your elements and your consume. So don't focus too much on the DPS, even though the polearm will be dealing and proccing a lot of element damage. So here's a quick look at the detailed stats, which you can pause and check out everything if you need to. But now let's get straight into the gear. So for starters, I am rocking the Dragon Coil. Now this is essentially for some additional shield charge whenever you perform a crit hit. And because you're over 60% crit, you're pretty much always going to proc a crit hit, meaning you're going to be gaining your shield charge very fast, which is essential for this build. I threw in a bit extra crit chance, but if you could get some additional shield charge, that's always nice too. You want to be able to try and spam your shield as much as possible, so anything that gives you some bonus shield charge is always nice. Now, my Dragon Coil is rocking a fire DPS, but honestly, you can switch it to water if you want to. If you feel like you want to do a bit more water damage, you can put that out, but considering your shield is going to be doing more than enough for you, you really don't need it, and you could keep both of your primaries as fire DPS. Now, a substitution for this is the Sword of Dominance, of course. Now, if you could get this roll with the primaries right here, but with fire or water with some good secondaries, this is what I'd recommend running. One that gives you the Greater Blessing of Luck primary and the shield charge primary as well. I'm still on the hunt for a better Sword of Dominance so I can put in this position. Now, the next weapon that you don't need a substitution for is the Occam's Fan, which is a legendary polearm, which drops from the Lightbringer game mode. Now, the primary stat is very good. It essentially gives you almost 100% ignite power whenever you hit an enemy that's not inflicted with ignite. And because of some of the other gear I have on, whenever I pop a weapon technique, I inflicted element, and the range with the Occam's Fan's northern technique can spread that fire relatively decently in a good range. And not only does it deal like a burst of fire damage, it also sometimes stacks twice. So not only are they going to be getting hit with almost 100% bonus firepower, they'll also get a secondary stat in some cases. And honestly, when I play, and you'll see in some of the gameplay, I typically start out with the Occam's Fan. I'll do a double weapon technique on an enemy or boss or just anything around it just so I can proc that fire, and then I'll shield consume just so I can stack another element and then consume both of the elements on top of each other, dealing even more damage. The primary for the Dragon Coil is primarily for keeping up some overhealth, giving you your shield charge back and proccing some fast fire procs, but the Occam's Fan is for dealing that damage and spreading it in a decent area before you pop your shield consume, stacking both elements, fire and ice. ice. Now moving on to the charm that we are rocking, we have the Beetle Talisman, which is again essential for this build as well. It unleashes a shockwave that deals fire damage 25% to the damage dealt whenever you consume an element. And because you're already going to be proccing fire damage and you're already going to be consuming elements consistently, this is also some nice DPS, because 25% of your consumed damage dealt is a pretty big percentage. Now, moving over to the amulet we have the Kaido, which is another cursed item that drops from the Lightbringer game mode. And this one is very, very beneficial for dealing increased shield damage and increased shield charge speed. And because you're going to be primarily consuming using your shield attacks, this is essential. So the primary is for each cap resistance, you get plus 23% shield charge speed and 24% shield damage. Now, this can vary a bit, but if we go take a look back at my stats, all of my resistances are capped. So that means I will essentially get an additional 138% shield charge speed and an additional 144% shield damage because of all my capped resistances. So this is essential for not only being able to spam your shield charge, but also dealing massive damage with your shield and massive consume damage with your shield. So this is a very, very essential item, and I'll go over how you can get max cap resistances without having to focus on just getting resistances on all of your secondary stats, which so far I don't think any of my pieces of gear have plus resistances on, but we still have max resistance. So we'll go over that when we get into the augment. Now moving over to our rings, we have a cursed item that also drops from the Lightbringer game mode, but drops as a rare ring. So I leveled it up to legendary, which you will have to as well. But essentially your timing attacks consume elements and deal plus 45% damage. Now, your timing attacks are why you want to get your shield skill points to at least 3, because every time you pop that explosion, it counts as a timing attack and will consume massive damage with your shield and that bonus shield damage. Now, you don't necessarily need to use your shield ability to consume elements because any timing attack will work, but the shield one is more beneficial. Now, moving over to the second ring we have the Eye of the Dragon, which is for just a bit extra survivability, but whenever you defeat an element inflicted enemy, you gain 216% overhealth with some overhealth retention, and your weapon techniques inflict elements, which is beneficial for proccing as many elements and stacking as many as you can. Now, there is a curse item you can use as well in this spot if you want to, called the Mikolai's Hell, which gives you some additional overhealth every time you consume an element. But considering with the Eye of the Dragon, all you have to do is defeat an element inflicted enemy and you'll get some overhealth. This one's a bit more beneficial and it gives you the extra perk of your weapon techniques inflicting elements. So if you want to, you can use this as well, because honestly, you probably will gain way more overhealth, but you're going to lose out on the weapon techniques inflicting elements and lose out on some of that overhealth retention. So if you want more overhealth faster, this one actually isn't a bad one to use, but if you want more overhealth retention and you want your weapon techniques to inflict elements, Eye of the Dragon is still probably the better way to go. Now moving over to the Lifestone, we are using the Bead of the Heart and Ethereum, which is giving us some additional element power. Now I really didn't go over too much of the secondaries in here, but what you want to look for with your secondaries is element power, element duration, and some shield charge speed if you can, but primarily element power and element duration, because fire's duration is very, very short, but it deals a lot of damage. So if you can increase its duration, you're going to be dealing massive amount of damage on top of consuming with the chill proc as well. So when you're looking for secondary stats on your gear, element power, element duration, and some shield charge speed. And then for the last piece of gear for our banners, we have the Plague Pennant, which gives you some additional element power and extra damage for each type of element inflicted on the enemy. And like I said, all you have to do is pop a weapon technique with either one of your weapons and you'll already be stacking fire. And then when you pop your shield ability, you'll automatically be proccing chill, since that is Typhon's passive. Shield throws deal water damage and inflict chill. So that's pretty much all of the gear I'm rocking for this build, but let's take a quick look at the augments so we can see what all makes this build actually pretty strong. And if you were thinking, hopefully that's the last of these cursed items, well, you are wrong. This build is very cursed item heavy, which means you will be doing a lot of Lightbringer farming to get some of these pieces. But let's take a quick look at all of the augments. So first we have Paradise, which is just for a bit extra weapon technique charge whenever you perform a crit hit. And because our crit hit is already so high, it's another good one to use for consistently popping your weapon technique, which will therefore help you proc element. Now our secondary are element power and fire damage on this one. But again, element power, element duration, fire damage, or water damage are all really good rolls to have for this build. Next, we have the Iron Heart. But essentially it just gives you some base flat out crit with lowering a bit of your charge speed, which is never that big deal. But it has element power and plus spirit. But honestly, I could probably find one that gives me element power, element duration, or element power and some other type of damage. Now the next augment we have is Focus, which just gives you a bit extra overhealth whenever you perform a crit hit, which again makes it easy for you to stay alive with this build. But I have element power and vitality. Now you're going to want vitality on 3 of these augments as the secondary stat because they all feed into this legendary vitality augment. So the next one that you're definitely going to want vitality on as well is Healing Wave. Now honestly, you could probably swap this out for any other item, but I honestly kept it on here for those bonus secondary stats. But the primary is restores health to you and nearby allies whenever you place a banner. Now this really isn't that necessary for this build, but again, I wanted those secondary stats, so that's the primary reason why I'm actually using this. But honestly, something like Scourge in this spot that gives you some additional shield charge whenever you defeat an enemy isn't bad. Black Seed is another decent one. Whenever you defeat an enemy with a weapon technique, you gain some additional shield charge, and your next shield ability deals increased damage, which is always good for that additional consume damage that you'll be doing with your shield. Sleepless Eye is another very good one as well, which increases your shield damage for every consecutive hit with your shield throw. Then there's also Lucid Vision that gives you some additional health whenever you hit an enemy with your shield throw, which is always nice since most things in the game give you overhealth and not necessarily base health. And then the last item is another cursed item, but if all of your resistances are over 45%, you get some additional polarity attack charge speed and polarized bonus damage. And considering all of our resistances are capped out and maxed at 50, this would be able to proc. And with the secondaries that I have on this one in particular, they give you some additional element power and shield damage, actually not too bad of an idea. But ultimately this build took way too long to farm, so even though there are a lot of other items that you can put in this spot, I'm just keeping this one here for now, but I'll probably change it at some other point. Now, speaking of cursed items, the other item that you'll want right across from that legendary vitality augment is Kindled Core, which primary stat is 100% of both of your fire damage bonus and fire resistance, also increases your ignite power. And like I said, pairing that with the Occam's fan that already gives you an additional pretty much 100% fire damage bonus, this is a really good one to have for your fire and ice build, but also really good for when that fire proc stacks, it dealing a lot of damage. But now moving on to the augment that is all about our resistances. This is how I have capped out resistances on everything, is the Primal Presence of Mind. Now, because it's primal, that means you have to get it from the Ascended Towers of Trials, but it essentially gives you +2 to all resistances for every 30 vitality on adjacent augments. So if you put it in this position, you can have it feed off of 1, Healing Wave, 2, Focus, or 3, Kindled Core. Make sure that the final upgrade of your augment gives it vitality so they can all feed into this augment. Now it says plus 18% additional resistance, which doesn't seem like a lot, but clearly it's enough to get you to maxed out resistances, which is essential for the Cursed Amulet. Now taking a look at our last 3 augments on this build, we have Ardor, which gives you some additional shield damage for every 20 spirit on adjacent augment. So if you put it in this slot, you can have it feed off of Healing Wave and this cursed item right here, the Enchanted Tear, which is honestly for some additional chill duration, because element duration and element power are both really good stats to have for applying elements and making them last on enemies longer. And then lastly, I think this is a must whenever you're doing anything with heavy element, but it is Rift, plus damage for each type of element on an enemy. And considering we'll be stacking multiple elements and elements that have a lot of duration, this is another really good one to have. So that is pretty much everything when it comes to this build. If you saw my stream last night where I was testing it out, even before I lifted all the curses, it was putting in that work. We actually almost got to 30 until the game crashed on us on floor 28. So you understand our salt when we were running through it. But the fact that we still managed to get that far on a test build with so many cursed items that I have on this build that I was lifting, meaning they weren't even fully lifted for me to be dealing my max potential or my max power with the build, was insane. So now that I got everything leveled up and maxed out, the gameplay that you're currently seeing is it when it's maxed out. But again, there's still other items that I gave you some information on when it comes to substitutes that you can use for some additional damage, health, or more in terms of improving this build. Even though this build is strong as hell, it can always be stronger. And that's always what I like to see in the comment section when people do take some of these builds and mix and match them to see how they change them or improve them, because I already know that they're strong, but I also know that they can be much, much stronger when messed around with a bit more. So hopefully this video helps you all out and hopefully y'all enjoy this build. This is the first time I really even messed around with Typhon since just about launch. I typically never cared for the Valorplate, but I always liked the design because I never cared for the element. But mixing that chill with the ignite, making it a fire and ice build actually is pretty fun and increases the damage potential so much more. So again, if you're going to be trying out this build, let me know in the comment section below, and let me know how far it gets you in the Ascended Towers of Trials as well. Like I said, this build has almost 8 or maybe even more than 8 cursed items, and I was running it all yesterday on stream trying to lift multiple curses, and we definitely would have got to 430 if the game didn't glitch out on us. So I'm curious to see how people's builds and runs are going to be when they lift all the curses and have maxed out gear. So again, let me know in the comments below. Other than that, I am going to wrap it up. So be sure to join the Discord if you haven't. A link to that is in the video description. We have all things GodFall in there as well. Guides, builds, LFGs, and so much more. So again, a link to that is in the video description. And if you haven't followed the Twitch, a link to that is in the description as well. I stream GodFall every Tuesdays and Fridays and sprinkle in a couple other games throughout the week. So a link to that and all my other social media platforms are down in the description of the video. So with that, I am out of here, guys. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this video. I am out of here, guys. Thanks for the love. Thanks for the subs. Peace.